A wonderful good morning again to you, our viewers and our listeners, wherever you are. Those of you that's in Classic 105.5, 105.9 on the FM band, and our viewers that's just joining us on GBN Television, Channel 7, Channel 11, and Channel 20 viewing cable. And certainly good morning to those of you that's joining us via the World Wide Web at www.gbn.gd, via our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. Welcome to the televised edition of the Mid-Morning Buzz. As announced, my guest this morning, he's a project manager of the EBA project, Ecosystem-Based Adaptation. And just to put it simply, and he would further expand on it, how do we survive, finding ways and means to survive and to coexist within the current construct of what's happening in our environment? Plain and simple. So I know you hear the term and you're thinking ecosystem, EBA. You're like, seriously? You want to figure out what it is about? Let's literally. It is much more simple than you imagine, and you certainly, each and every one of us, have our parts to play in ensuring the fulfillment and the full duration of that project, and again, answering the question of our sustainability and adaptation within the current environment in which we live. Good morning, Ian. How are you?
Good morning, Joseph, and good morning to your viewers. I'm great.
How's everything on your side?
Fantastic.
I was just saying to the listeners and viewers that as I introduce you know, sometimes you hear about these projects, EBA, and you're probably thinking ecosystem-based adaptation. You're probably thinking, gee, that's for the elites, the technocrats and the boys that have the special skills that is needed. And yes, while we need people as yourself to guide the project, the reality of it is that the conversation that underpins this whole project is one that each and every one of us should get involved in, and we are getting involved in, as this forum would show, and everybody should get involved in it because it involves each and every one of us.
Absolutely. Ecosystem-based adaptation simply means doing things naturally where you are. Okay. Our ecosystem in Grenada is everything that you can see, touch, smell, feel, that comes out of the earth. Okay, and the air and the water. We have very limited resources in Grenada. Even though we have land, not every part of Grenada we can use for agriculture, not every part of the ocean we can use for fishing. So we have to have some sort of a way of managing these resources as we go into the future.
Managing what is already scarce resources, managing what is already mismanaged resources, managing what is already overused resources. That's a lot of management that is required. Is this a battle, Ian, that we can win?
Absolutely. Not only can we win, but we will win. All right, and the reason why we will win is to raise awareness. Now, before the period of colonialism, all right, starting in 1492, everything was just, okay, we had enough fish, we had enough land, we had enough everything to feed everyone. There was no pollution, there was no overfishing, there was no artificial fertilizer. We didn't have any of these problems, okay? These problems came about as a result of industrialization. Industrialization benefited larger countries. It didn't benefit us. We were colonies, so we were used to produce raw material to be sent away, and as a result, that's where the mismanagement started. We had all of the resources that we needed to survive on this island.
Raped, left for dead? Or am I putting it too harshly?
Well, no, we were not. We were not left for dead. We were just beaten badly enough to obey and not die,
Right.
so that we can keep producing. Yeah.
Either way, we survived, and it doesn't make sense in us lamenting the past. While it's important to appreciate the past, the truth is that we are here, and we have to find a way to carve out our existence one way or the other. It may require some sacrifices. It may require us doing things differently, but it requires us to get something done, and the time for doing it is now.
Yes, the time for doing it is now. The time. There's no such time as the present. The time to do anything is now. The only time we can do anything is now. Okay? Anything in the past we can learn from, the future we can hope for, but we can only act now. All of the situations that we're dealing with in Grenada must be negotiated, okay? And it must be negotiated for the benefit of the people here in Grenada. With this ecosystem-based adaptation project that we're doing on the west coast of Grenada, which includes St. Mark and St. John, we are empowering the people by showing them how to use the natural resources that we are blessed with in such a way that we can preserve it and we can use it in such a way that we can maximize the potential without destroying it. And we can have enough for future generations, whether it's for development or for agriculture or agricultural development or fisheries development or whatever it may be. We are showing our community, we're showing the people in our communities how we can harness the resources that we have, how we can utilize the resources effectively by learning modern techniques, as well as relying on old, proven ways. We have to be careful with the word old, okay? Because old does not mean bad, and old does not just mean the last 500 years. Old can mean the last 5,000 years, okay? And there are things that we can learn from. For example, our rivers have been here forever, just fine. Rain has been here just fine. But recently, because of industrialization and quasi-industrialization, because we're not called Grenada an industrial force, all right? But we have been introducing things into the natural environment that has the potential to damage our food supply. And if we are going to survive on this island through another pandemic or something similar to this pandemic, we have to be resourceful. We must know how to manage our resources. We must understand where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are, and we must learn how to function in this environment in such a way that we do not destroy it.
On the conversation of destroying it, the reality is that nature as it is, it has a way, there's a circle of life. Things evolve, and the rain falls, there's evaporation, precipitation, and there's a water cycle. There's life is naturally a cycle. The challenge though comes in though when there is outside help, undesired outside help that is engineered by human activity. But in a lot of cases though, Ian, there's some of us, we are conscious of what we are doing, but we're not conscious of the effect. And there are those, we know exactly what we're doing, but yet we still deny the reality of it. Some people still argue whether or not the conversation of climate change is a technocratic conversation that's indulged in by misfits and other academics for their own purposes. And they're saying, listen, this has nothing to do with us. I'm just going to continue living. What say you?
Well, that topic can last months, years, okay? But what matters is what's happening to us here now in Grenada. Grenada is a very small island state. We're at the front line of the Caribbean realm, where the Atlantic Ocean crashes into the Caribbean. We're on that front line, literally. Anything that happens in terms of weather that comes across the Atlantic Ocean, we're in the front line. It affects us. If there is not enough rain, it affects us. If there's too much rain, it affects us. If the rain comes at the wrong time, it affects us. If farmers cannot reliably predict the weather, you can lose your crops just before harvest, with a flood. You can lose your crops because there's too much dry weather and there's no planning for water harvesting when it was rainy season. Or we may have situations where we're using boulders in the rivers to do construction. So when we have a flood, the land washes away and we lose everything. And it's impossible to restore topsoil once you lose it. So these things must be strategic. We have to know the correct type of plants we put on the banks of rivers. It doesn't wash away. We have to know how close we can farm to a river so it doesn't pollute the water in the river. Because when you pollute the river, Joseph, you also run off into the ocean. That damages the fish. Okay? So there is a relationship. And people that live in the country, what we call the country, they know this. They have survived as fishermen for a long time. They know these things.
When you say no, they can acknowledge that life has changed. They acknowledge, as a little boy, I used to go to the river and push around on that big stone and pull and I get a Cadore. They acknowledge those things, and they can tell you, boy, when I was growing up, the river used to reach this far. I had a little ravine behind my house that flowed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. But the question is getting them to recognize all of these little seemingly insignificant changes happening within your little environment. It's happening other places. It's happening in the ocean. It's the reason why years ago you went to fish and you spent 2 hours and came back with a net full. Now there is a challenge, and now the EBA project is now having to establish MPAs. Let's talk about the MPAs, its purpose, role, and function, and the gazetting process that is involved.
Wonderful. The marine protected areas, are simply areas that we will manage for the benefit of the people that live in that area, period. We are creating a marine protected area so that the people can understand the resources that they have and have a say in determining what happens on that body of water that's attached to the coast. I've said before in other settings, every single inch of coast in Grenada should be managed by the community that lives there. For instance, you don't want to wake up one day while you're living on the coast only to find out that that piece of space is now designated for something that is contrary to the benefit of the people that live there. Okay? And the future of the people that will continue to live there. So we must educate our people, our communities. We must empower them so that they can understand the opportunities that lay ahead for them. Okay, because we're in the information age. The information that we have access to today didn't exist 20 and 30 years ago. So political leaders should not be short-sighted in thinking that we're out of ideas. So somehow creating a outside investor proposed idea is a solution without thinking that Grenadians have the capacity to create opportunities themselves. Because if we have equity in this country, where there's equal access to opportunities, we can build prosperity in all of these communities. And a marine protected area is just the beginning. It is just one of the steps to bringing forth that process.
The marine protected space as it is, I mean, it aids on different fronts. There's for economic resources, biodiversity, conservation. I mean, it is vast. And as such, if we just take the economic elements to it, it means that if we talk about economics, survival, sustainability, it means that you, Ian, me, we're not fishermen. Well, at the time now, I ain't sure what you do when you and I not talking EBA, so I ain't want to swear for you. But the reality of it is that, because there's even a conversation about us eating healthy, giving up some of our traditional meals as we talk about adapting to a new healthcare environment. But some may say, I want to eat healthy, but what am I going to eat? So that it should become a household conversation.
Of course. Well, now you have brought me to another area that I'm very passionate about, which is wellness. Okay, if we focus on having a clean environment that preserves the fish habitat, okay, so that we can eat healthy fish, we will have wellness as assumed, because if we're eating healthy, if the food we're growing is healthy, if we have enough fish stock, okay, if we have food security, all right, then we're talking about wellness. We can reduce a lot of our worry and pain just by taking care of these basic things. And the marine protected area is an idea, but it must be institutionalized. And it must be done, this must be done through the gazetting process, which can only be done by the government, okay? So we have been working with our government as a partner in this project, okay? They are one of the
18 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. We seem to have some slight technical challenge with our guests. It's part of the new environment in which we now exist. But in case you're just joining us, we're speaking there with Ian Robertson. He is from GRENCODA. He's the project manager of the EBA project, ecosystem-based adaptation as it is. And it's just about finding ways to live, to coexist with nature as it is. As we're just talking about the marine protected area. What is the marine protected space? It provides for economic reasons why we should protect it, biodiversity, and protection of species, right? So it is a conversation that must be had. I mean, it's interesting. We'll see if we can regain connection with Ian. We keep our eyes on the clock, 17 minutes past the hour. I'll take a quick commercial break, try to re-engage with him, and we'll be right back right here on the Mid-Morning Buzz.
One day, I woke up and, they painted a set of pedestrian crossing all along the streets. Nobody told us how to use that thing properly.
I know how.
You're serious?
Every safe, good driver knows about these things. As a driver, you have to be very attentive. You're coming up close to a pedestrian cross, you start slowing down immediately, looking to see if there's any pedestrian on the side getting ready to cross. If there is, you stop on the line that is a certain distance before the crosswalk. Then you would see the pedestrian put their hands out, looking directly at you, indicating that they are going to cross. And only when you have come to a complete stop that is when they will quickly and safely cross to the other side. And then you continue happily on your journey.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact, wait for pedestrian to cross. Then you happily continue on your journey.
This message is brought to you by this group of insurance companies, the Traffic Advisory Body, and the Traffic Department.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
One minutes gone past the hour in the morning. I do apologize for that challenge we had with that connectivity challenge we had with our guest, but he's back and we're going to re-engage the conversation. Ian, thank you. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Just before the break, we were talking about the MPAs and the importance of having it gazetted, and we said it's a critical step in institutionalizing it, that people get to understand and listen. The politicians have to do what they have to do, but it's all about ownership. That's where the conversation starts.
Absolutely.
So continue. Yeah.
Yes, the gazetting process is the way the marine protected area becomes institutionalized, and this allows the marine protected area to be managed by different entities in the different communities. For instance, this particular marine protected area would be managed by the Gore Fishermen Cooperative. And we are in the process of completing a building that should be ready in March. And once they move in, they would be able to function fully. But in order for the cooperative to manage effectively, we must have the marine protected area formalized. Okay, there must be a formal document that establishes the area that is designated as a marine protected area, and then it allows us to patrol the area. We can now make sure that the areas where fish stock should be reserved actually happens. We can make sure that areas where FADs are placed are managed. All of these pieces must come together, okay? So that once the marine protected area is established and is managed, then the work begins. And maybe in 4 or 5 years, you start seeing some of the tangible benefits of the MPA.
And that's why it's important that people understand that this is not an overnight conversation, Ian. And getting involved is not for today. But getting involved should be a commitment for life, really and truly.
Yes. The MPA creates a lot of opportunity for fishermen. Okay? And I'll tell you why. In Carriacou, for example, on Sandy Island is part of the MPA, but it's not gazetted. It's not formally a marine protected area. So there's a struggle as to how effective that particular marine protected area can be managed, okay? Because in Carriacou, for example, we have fishermen that are saying, look, we really love this idea. The fish are bigger. We're getting more fish. This is just one of the easy outcomes, okay, that create opportunity and create prosperity for fisher folk, okay? But in Carriacou, in Sandy Island, the marine protected area is also a very attractive place for yachts. So in order for yachts to be in a marine protected area, there's a fee. This fee must be collected by the rangers that operate in that marine protected area. So now there are income streams associated with a marine protected area that goes beyond catching fish, okay? In the St. George's Grand Anse Marine Protected Area, we have yachts, okay? I am not involved with that particular marine protected area, okay? But I'm sure there is some arrangement made to collect fees for all these yachts that we see anchored off St. George's, because that is a marine protected area, okay? I'm not sure who manages that particular marine protected area, but the Guave and St. Mark Marine Protected Area will be managed, at least the Guave Marine Protected Area will be managed by the Guave fisher folk, and then the St. Mark Marine Protected Area, we're in the process of creating a management plan. That is all part of this EBA project. So as we meet with community members and we gain buy-in and we explain the benefits of the marine protected area, and we work with farmers, so we show them how to do their part to not damage what ends up in the ocean, and we have them buffer the riparian zones so that it doesn't wash away, so that we have more crayfish, so that we can keep the river clean. All of these things are happening at the same time. In addition, we are meeting with some of the schools where we're working with students and teachers so that the future members of the community will have a better appreciation for the marine protected area. And we're doing all of these things right now as we speak as part of this EBA project.
And I'm assuming that you would agree that accountability, responsibility, I think it's an integral component to the sustainability of the EPA. So that, as you say in local parlance, people can just go and just do what they want and figure that there is no limitation to it. I'm born here, since I'm born, I'm doing this. I'm fishing here since I'm born, and nobody can't tell them what to do. That's a conversation. Yes. That's a yesterday conversation.
Yes, and you see, Joseph, we have a responsibility as a community to make sure that we lay the path for the next generation. Okay, we cannot just think of, well, this is how it used to be, and this is no. We're in a changing world. We're improving world. Okay,
right.
And if we want progress, we must have discipline. Okay, there is no such thing as progress without discipline, and that discipline comes from understanding the value of the resources that we're in charge of, and we cannot squander it. And not only should we not squander it, but we should multiply what we are given.
It is one thing to try to enhance our human capital by ensuring we receive the best level of education, and we're thinking futuristically about that, but not thinking while yes, we might have a generation that might be intellectually, academically, they have more on paper, but then they have nowhere to live. Where are they going to live? Our future generation for the next 30 years, if we don't start this process now, what we know as land area now, if left unchecked, will soon be taken over by the sea. What we know as vegetation areas now, if left unchecked, would be left as empty, barren land.
Yes.
And we fail to exist as a people.
And as good stewards, okay, we must, for us to have the impact that we have, not just in Grenada, but as a regional impact. All right, we must set the right example, because we have other countries in the Caribbean that's wrestling with the same problems that we have in Grenada. For instance, we're losing part of our coastline. Now, Grenada is a small place; we don't have a lot to lose. Okay, but we can affect how the ocean interacts, the current and the wave action. We can affect how it happens by understanding that we must put a permanence in sand mining. And we cannot be soft on this issue. And we do not have to punish people for this. We just have to educate them and show them why these things benefit you. These are the reasons why it harms you. Okay, like I mentioned in our last conversation, that I was having a conversation with some of the police officers in Guelph, and they were telling me how loud it is when the wave crashed at the back of the building. And keep removing the stones, and that's what's going to happen. Keep removing the sand, that's what's going to happen. Because the ocean doesn't care if you remove sand or not. It's going to try to replace it, and it's going to take it from one place to put it to another place. Right. So whenever you if you do the math, okay, if we're gonna have communities that live on the coast, they should be the best stewards of the coast.
And I guess it's interesting how we take ownership of our communities if we see. If I visibly see that an outsider is coming into my community, we start getting territorial because we can see it, we can smell it, it's easy for us to interact with it. But very often, the elements of nature, that's a different conversation. But while we do not have control and over all of the details as to how what happens in nature, we do have control over how we treat and what we do, our habits and our lifestyles, what we may choose to do or choose not to do. It goes back, as you said, taking full responsibility for our actions and our inactions.
Yeah. Now, being a person from the Kingdom of Petit Martinique, okay? From
where, sorry?
From the Kingdom of Petit Martinique.
I just wanted to make sure that I heard you right. The Kingdom of Petit Martinique.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Okay. We understand what it takes to survive on a small island surrounded by the ocean and thrive. Okay? We understand this. This has been a way of life forever. Okay? We can trace back, families can trace back generations, like 300 years in Petit Martinique. Okay? And one of the things that affected other islands in the Grenadines was piracy. One of the reasons why Petit Martinique is so well preserved was the absence of piracy. In modern day, okay, piracy takes on a different face. Okay, it takes on the face sometimes. It takes on the face of foreign development, foreign investors.
Right.
We are okay to the extent that it is not piracy. Okay, and if we can inform our communities of the resources that they control, okay, they can harness these resources and develop their space, okay, whether it's the fish or agriculture, okay, we can harmonize these resources with the information age and create a type of prosperity never before seen in this country. We can increase the prosperity. And remember that I said this 50 times, 50-fold increase in prosperity in this country if we manage our resources appropriately. Okay? And the answer is not bringing in only outside development, even though outside development is needed. When it's appropriate, when it's focused on helping the people of Grenada to be more prosperous, yes. And if we have a fishing industry that can harness the fish, produce the fish, develop factories, okay, to convert tuna into our own product, these things are possible here right now today in Grenada. Okay, we used to have saltfish years ago in another era. Okay, we used to have smoked fish. Okay, now we can't even find flying fish. Okay, and there's a reason. Something changed, something happened, and we must correct these problems.
Something happened. We must correct these problems. You didn't hear it from me, but I'm going to adopt it, and we all need to adopt it. Something happened, and the truth is, what happened may not have been. We may not have been directly responsible. I know what I'm saying, directly, but what needs to change is where you, I, the media, each and every one of us become part of this new transformational conversation there, where we understand that it's no longer about you and me, but the community. And that highlights, though, is at the center of what you've been doing. And most recently, Independence Weekend, you were in the community of Grove, you're working with the police. It's all part of that networking, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And we're now focused on reaching the schools. Okay, and we want to get to the schools before it's exam time. And we're also in the process of raising community awareness. So a group of us in the project are going to be going on a door-to-door campaign in Guelph and Victoria over the next 2 months. Okay.
Right.
Every person in Guelph and Victoria will get to know this face, okay? Because I will be speaking to you. I have already went to every single business place on Deputy Street, okay? And even if I have to buy unnecessary stuff, okay? Every single person in Guelph will know about this project, and they will understand how it benefits them. And every single person in Victoria, okay, if you're on a bus, if you're in the town of Victoria and you're hearing my voice, you will get to see me. You have already seen me, but you will get to see more of me, because as we wind down this project, we're gonna be having events in St. Mark and St. John, where we're gonna coalesce with the whole community to understand the benefits of this project.
Understanding the benefits of the project, but ownership must be taken, and you and I, we need to play our part in ensuring not just that it happens in Guelph or Victoria, but understanding what happens in Guelph, how it impacts us. You didn't quite catch it, did you? Most of the fishing boats that we see on the Carnage, where do they come from?
The Kingdom of Martinique.
And just a final point you make as we talk about adapting. Given that you find that you're from the Kingdom of Martinique and your neighboring sister is the Kingdom of Carriacou, where for years you've used systems. There've always been a challenge with the water, availability of water, and the folks from Carriacou, they have learned over the years. I told somebody I'm from the south of the island, and I grew up knowing how to bathe in a spoon of water.
Yes.
It is what it is.
I know, because water was scarce.
Water was scarce. It's only, I always say this, the first time I opened my tap, a couple years ago, and you saw chlorine water in the pipe, you were like, huh? I remember the days when you literally had to drink the borehole water, you had to chill it very, very cold and throw it in the back of your throat and just swallow.
You know, Joseph, you just mentioned chlorine and water, all right? We just did a project, okay, with another NGO on another Grenadine island where we built CMOS processing facility, which is the first one of its kind in the region, where we changed the way CMOS is harvested, and we installed a 20,000 gallon tank to catch rainwater, because CMOS needs water, a lot of water, to be cleaned, okay? And it's important that we use rainwater, not the chlorinated water, okay? And hopefully we will see similar projects here in Grenada, because we're still testing that project out to fine tune all of the things. But that project was such a successful initiative, okay, to show the fishermen that these were fishermen that were unable to continue their livelihood as fishermen because the fish is now further, so you need larger boats, you need more resources to afford larger boats. So we show them an alternative to fishing, which is CMOS processing. So hopefully, not in this EBA project, but in future projects, we are taking notes. We are doing assessments to get the data for future projects where we will be focusing on rainwater harvesting for the purpose of feeding CMOS and alternative income, sustainable income for fishermen that can no longer go out and fish.
Thank you, Ian. It's just about 20 minutes on to the hour of 11 o'clock, of 12 o'clock, that is. At the top of the hour is going to be the midday edition, a production of the News and Current Affairs Department, and as such, we need to make way for that team. Ian, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. This is a conversation. Sure. This is just the start of what's going to be an ongoing conversation. That's part of the EBA project, and the EBA being part of GRENCODA, which is the parent organization. Thank you, Ian. All the best to you, comrade.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
19 minutes on to the hour. The midday edition is next right here on Classic 105.5 and 105.9 on the FM band. And to those of you that is on television, I send you back to Master Studio Control Master Control, that is, for your regular programming. Until then, so long, everybody.